Very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on the evening review. My name is Toivo Njebela. Tonight on the platform, we welcome back Duminga Ndala, who is the president of the Landless People's Movement Youth Command Element. And she was also a delegate at that chaotic National Youth Council General Assembly in Swakopmund over a week ago, which had to be called off because of physical confrontations, among other issues. She's here to give her version of what she saw on the day. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you still have both your eyes and there are no visible injuries on you. Might be the internal trauma only, but you came out intact.
Yes, fortunately enough, I came out in full peace. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Maybe give us, so you went there representing your party's youth league, or who, on whose ticket were you there?
I went there representing an affiliate organization called Nakama.
Okay.
So it's an affiliate of young people that mainly are into the creative arts industry. I think the creative arts industry is a very important industry, of course. It has a lot of talented people, and I think part of our manifesto and also the 8th administration has declared that they would like to invest into the creative arts industry, because that is where we uncover talents of young people, and also if we do develop this industry in its totality, it could contribute largely to the growth of this country. So as part of that affiliation.
Okay. And you went there as Nakama, you went into that General Assembly seeking what? Because I'm sure you had a rallying call to say Duminga and whoever else is on the Nakama ticket, go there. This is our agenda, this is our appeal, this is our rallying cry for whatever we want for the youth in our segment of society, which of course eventually didn't take place. But what is it that you aspired to achieve out of that assembly? Yes.
I think generally what we had aspired to achieve was, of course, to deliberate on issues affecting young people, whether within the creative arts industry or any other industry where young people find themselves in. One. Two, of course, it's to review the policies that are currently in place. You would know that the NYC was established as an act of parliament, but of course the modality in its current form, it's not tailor-made to the needs and the aspiration of young people. And of course, the model is also just not working. And this is why over the years, you would see that there has been a lot of internal instability at the NYC as a whole. NYC was also engulfed with a lot of legal disputes. So I think ours was really to look at those issues and to craft a way forward on how to create an environment or an institution where young people can be empowered in their totality, where young people can be given a platform to voice out their challenges, and of course to find ways on how we can improve or improve their material conditions as young Namibians.
Yeah, exactly. So you got there, and then what transpired?
So what happened is, of course, the first day was the day where we had to verify the affiliate organization as well as regional forum. So we got there and the verification process began. So each and every affiliate organization or regional forum is supposed to nominate 4 representatives that will be representing them at the General Assembly. And that's what we did. But of course, I think there was an issue that was raised by the comrades from the CLD, saying that they gave in 2 lists. Unfortunately, the first list, they gave in the first list and then the second list. Unfortunately, it seems like the first list was the one that was processed as opposed to the second list, because each chairperson of the organization, you are supposed to nominate your people, so you know your own people. And of course, they were verified, and we all agreed that the verification process was done accordingly as per the guidelines of the General Assembly, and everything was well. And we even adopted various reports, such as the organizational report, what the NYC have been doing for the past 4 years. And of course, the financial report was also adopted. And during the financial report, very important information was revealed to say, one, that over the past 6 years, there was no, the NYC books were not audited. That is one. Two, in terms of the NYC also failed to draft and table their annual report at the National Assembly, because that is part of the act that they are supposed to table their annual report annually to the National Assembly. Of course, their report should be deliberated in the National Assembly, and they have not done that. So we're really looking at substantive issues. But of course, we noticed that the other group, they were outnumbered in terms of the delegates. They were not going to win the General Assembly, and this is how really the violence erupted and came about. It was actually a sad set of reality.
Yeah. I'll just ask my producer just to start showing some of the images as this conversation goes on of the violence that erupted there. One of the issues there was in terms of verification. I just learned also along the way that the act, the NYC Act, makes provision for regional, for affiliate organizations to be active in at least 7 of the regions.
Correct.
Yeah. And there's a strong sense that a lot of these organizations, I don't know, maybe Nakama included, you can defend yourselves, but to say that they are not really active in other regions. So they're just small organizations, Windhoek-centric, for example, Oshana-centric, for example, and then they rock up at events like that. And that in itself is against the act.
Look, I think due to the financial constraint and of course what has been happening at the NYC, a lot of organizations perhaps are not fully operating as they should in all those 7 regions. But of course, in order for you to become an affiliate organization, the requirements are set. You need to be represented in 7 regions, as you have just alluded. And of course, there is a verification process from the NYC that happens. They do verify whether this organization is active in those regions, and they also during the verification process they actually even call those people the people or your members that you provide the list of. So I think that is more of an administrative issue, and of course perhaps those are some of the reforms that NYC as an institution needs to look at to verify whether are these organizations still active in those regions as they are perpetuating, and whether these are just briefcase organizations. So that it's an institutional matter and not necessarily a matter that delegates will have to raise, because I mean, how do we even know that those issues that are being raised by those specific delegates, whether or not the organizations are also active in the 7 regions. So I think those are some of the reforms that we need to do, or the institution has to look at going forth.
Yeah. The General Assembly was preceded by endorsements.
Yes.
The Swapo Party came out and said they are rallying behind Esther Simon. And then there was Simon Tapopi. That is now for the race of the chairperson, executive chairperson. And then there was a group of political party youth leagues that convened also and pronounced themselves on who they are supporting.
Correct.
So it became quite political. Is that how it should be?
Look,
in what way is NYC a political animal, if you like?
That's a very interesting question. I think the setup of the NYC in its current form, it's very political because, of course, political youth leagues are affiliated to the institution.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not supposed to be like that, because this is supposed to be a platform where young people across the sector in Namibia convene together and deliberate on substantive issues, and of course come up with programs that are tailor-made to their lived realities and that could also improve their material conditions. But of course, I think this has been a culture since ancient times that the SWAPO Party Youth League would always endorse a specific candidate from their party. And of course, that candidate being endorsed, that candidate would always emerge victorious. Unfortunately, the political climate has changed. We live in a very different political dispensation where young people are saying we need to depoliticize these institutions. These institutions do not belong to a certain political party. And this is perhaps why we find ourselves in this predicament. And this is also why this position has a lot of, it's being contested, because this has always been the tradition of a specific political party, and now there are young people that are politically conscious that wants to depoliticize this institution. Of course, they are disrupting the status quo, and this is why we find ourselves in this mess. But I think ultimately, the NYC, it's not supposed to be highly political. It's supposed to be an institution where young people really come together and deliberate on substantive issues affecting them in their totality.
Yeah. Yesterday I had on this platform Mr. Ndemweda Ngulifwa, who was also one of the delegates there. And one of the questions that I put to him, and I'm putting it to you also, is the viability of NYC today. Because like I said yesterday, nobody in this country knows what this entity does. Maybe you guys know, I don't know. So I'm asking this question as to what is the relevance of NYC when you already have the National Youth Service, whose work somehow we can see. They train people, they have facilities here and there, farms and whatnot. And you have the Minister of Education and Youth again there doing similar things. And then sometimes you think it's duplication of efforts. But spare your thought. We go for a very short break, and then Duminga Ndala will respond to that question. I am still talking to Duminga Ndala here on the evening review. Your answer to my question, Namibia was culled, liquidated because it has outlived its purpose under the circumstances that it was in. Why must we keep an entity like NYC?
Look, I think, like I said before, that the NYC was established as an act of parliament. Yeah. And of course, its function is, of course, to empower young people in the country, and of course, to grow them into leadership position. Of course, their purpose or mandate was tailor-made for young people then. So over the years, if we have to be honest, it has not evolved in terms of their programs. We still have the programs that are still currently at the NYC are dating back from 2009. So there's not been any evolution. So the programs are not tailor-made to the specific needs and aspirations of young people currently. That is one. Two, I think it was a very important institution for young people really across the board to come together and, of course, deliberate on substantive issues, and of course to echo their voices, because this is the only institution where young people can really echo their voices without any intimidation. So it was really relevant in terms of that. But of course, looking at how the institution has been engulfed with a lot of political interference, legal disputes over the years, instability. We have seen that it has outlived its purpose and mandate, and there's a need for us to really transform the institution, perhaps change it or transform it into a national youth development agency, where instead of us electing the ECs and board members directly through elections or popularity contests, we can perhaps open up the institution where qualified young people can apply for those positions, and we conduct public interviews, and of course based on their expertise and experience, then these young people will be appointed in those specific position. And of course, and the transformation should just not look at empowering young people in terms of programs, but perhaps we should develop an ecosystem where we transform it into a research-based hub, because there's a need for research in this country. There's also a need for us to train our young people, specifically those that are in the entrepreneurship sector. So I think those are the things that we need to look at going forward.
Yeah, but at what point does that happen, Duminga, when you see the General Assembly is the platform at which all these ideas to question whether the institution is still fit for purpose, whether it has evolved with the times. The GA was meant to be a platform for those kind of conversations, but because the entire assembly is so anchored around elections and positions, nothing else matters going into that. It's about conniving, talking to people, vote for my candidate, do this, do that. And then people win their positions. It's celebration time, it's popping champagne, and then until the next General Assembly. So the danger for me is really there, where we say elective processes in our country, whether it's congresses of political parties or now the General Assembly of the National Youth Council, they have just become elective, and nothing else really matters on the agenda. Do you agree with that point of view?
Correct. And this is why I said political interference. I think it's one of the factors that is actually causing the institution to be in such a mess. I think it's not appropriate that political parties are highly invested in institution for young people. We don't need endorsement. Let young people vote for the leaders that they deem fit and that they want. There is one. Two, I think in the same vein, it was really also uncalled for the Prime Minister to craft such a statement on social media that this has been the tradition, that the Swapo Party Youth League would always endorse their candidate and their candidate will emerge victorious. That was not needed, given the violence that has erupted. So I think there need to be a mind shift. Instead of us just thinking that the General Assembly is mainly for elections, but the mind shift should be that the General Assembly should be a platform where young people go there and deliberate on issues that are affecting them, whether it's issues of unemployment, whether it's issues of access to funding, whether it's issues of opportunities and so forth. So I think there should be a mind shift, and the reform should come from us as youth leaders. And instead of us engaging in violence and confrontation, we should be engaging in quality debates. But unfortunately, it seems like some people are just not there. And it's going to take a long time for us to really bring them to where we are. And of course, in the morning at the General Assembly, you would see that the team that caused the violence, they wanted to collapse the General Assembly already, because they've boycotted the session where we were deliberating on the youth fund. They were not there. We were deliberating on other issues affecting young people in various sectors. They were not there. They boycotted those sessions. So it's evident that their purpose was just to go deliver their candidate, but unfortunately, based on the numbers, they could not deliver their candidate, and this is why the General Assembly was collapsed, and it resulted in violence or physical confrontation.
Yeah, what does that say about the readiness of young people? We will show now the overlays of just what transpired. There is a gentleman there, Pedro Mueño. I was contacted by people this week who said that he's hospitalized in Swakopmund. You look at his eye there, the man. These are young people who went there with aspirations and they want to chart the future for the country. We are told they are the future leaders of our country. And, you know, like I was saying to Mr. Hulifwa here yesterday, even political parties like SWAPO, who have one of the fiercest battles for office, because, and these are not just Secretary General or whatever, President of the country. Not once have we seen people being shoved and even being beaten like that. And the stakes there are much higher because, of course, there's a presidency of the country and all that. What does that say about you guys as young people?
I think young people are ready to govern.
With fists?
No. We have been empowered. We have the necessary skills and expertise. Yeah. I think the mistake that we should not make is to think just because a few young people that have decided to result in violence or confrontation, then they should be used then as a guinea pig that young people are not ready to govern. I think that's a very wrong interpretation of the event.
Nine people injured. It's not one person. Maybe it was just two people who confronted each other. It was a whole.
Of course, Toivo, but you would notice that.
Chairs flying. Just look again at that video.
Correct, but you would notice that majority of the young people that were at the General Assembly, they actually seated when that commotion was happening. So that will tell you that it's just a few individuals that, of course, were not willing to lose at the General Assembly, and they decided to resort to such confrontation. Perhaps we need to question the readiness of those few individuals that decided to bring such chaos. Majority of the young people that were seated, in fact, I was one of them, seated, were shocked that young people would actually resort to such violence. So young people are ready to govern. We have the necessary skills and expertise, and we have been empowered through a lot of leadership programs. So I don't think the interpretation should be whether young people are ready or not. I think the argument should be what should happen, or how should we hold accountable to those young people that have resulted into a physical confrontation. And I should emphasize that and I understand the minister's circumstances, but I was actually disappointed that she did not pronounce herself on that front. Those young people were supposed to be held accountable, were supposed to track down from which affiliation organization are they coming from, and those affiliate organizations should be suspended from the NYC, or they should be suspended from attending the General Assembly, because they are the ones that actually collapsed the General Assembly. And mind you, this is the second time this thing is happening. The last time it was in 2024, where we all went to Rietfontein. 2 days when we were in the General Assembly, we got a letter from the former minister saying that the General Assembly should be called off. There was a 2 million that was spent. And again, this year, the General Assembly was postponed until further notice. It's another 2 million. So we keep on wasting money because of a few individuals that are not ready to lose elections. So we should actually keep those individuals accountable and not make it as if young people are not ready to govern or young people are unruly. That's not the case.
You see, that is exactly where my concern is about the readiness of the youth. 2024, the event was held. Confrontations. I remember there was a lady from PDM who almost fought with the director then, Kalista Swartz, in that hall. That content is still online to this day. And then the thing gets postponed only for the tape to play again in the same way. That is not an indication of young people ready. You could pin it on individuals, but if as a collective you couldn't have resolved that, kick out those people and proceed.
Perhaps it's the model that is currently in place. And the model is through, you get to those positions through elections. Perhaps we need to reform the model instead of us having elections, because even if we have to call another General Assembly, mind you, the possibility of it happening, it's very high. So perhaps it should be an institutional reform. We
That's what I
need to
was saying.
reform the model, perhaps, from it being an elective Congress. We should perhaps look at, like alluded at the beginning of the interview, that we should open up the space where young people, qualified young people, should apply, and we conduct public interviews. Perhaps that will work instead of us having an elective Congress.
That was my suggestion yesterday to Mr. Nyulifwe, and he was having none of that because he said, it will lead to exclusion and all these kind of things. But an institution like that ought to be led by people of a certain caliber.
Of course.
Whether it's in terms of moral understanding or, uprightness, whether it's the level of education, because we can all argue that you might exclude people who do not have education or whatever, but there has to be standards. There has to be a cap. There has to be a threshold to say you understand the mandate of the country, you understand financials, you understand strategic issues of the institution. You can't just come from where I come from with my grade 10 and a fist in the air, and then I say I qualify. No, it doesn't work that way. So there has to be some reform, because I fear, really, like you do, that under the current model, it doesn't look like we'll achieve a smooth process for leadership succession. Maybe your final words on this matter, in short.
I think in terms of the institutional reform, there is also the issue of separation of power. The executive director, which is, of course, the CEO of the institution, is also the chairperson of the board. So already, in terms of separation of power, there's a problem there. And if we have to reform the institution, we need to separate the two. The executive director can't be the chairperson of the board. 1, 2. And I would like to agree with you that we need capable young people to lead the institution. Young people that understand the lived realities of fellow young people that can interpret financial reports, annual reports, and so forth. And this is perhaps why the institution is also in a mess, because for so long, young people that have been occupying those spaces were elected through a popularity contest. If you're popular, and if people like you, they're of course going to vote for you. But of course, that in itself is some shortcoming. So I think for the institution to live and of course to carry out its mandate, we need to transform it. And transformation should come from within, and from us as youth leaders, we need to lead by example. But of course, if we are not willing to give up because we are outnumbered, unfortunately, the next GA is going to erupt in violence. And of course, we keep on wasting taxpayer money, and it's unfair to the taxpayers and of course to the institution, because the credibility and the integrity of the institution has gone down the drain. And the onus is on us as young people to bring that back.
Absolutely. Dominga, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming.
Having me.
Yeah. That is Duminga Ndala from she's one of the delegates at that called off General Assembly of the National Youth Council more than a week ago, just reflecting on events that transpired on the day. Thank you for watching.